Welcome back to the Done Deal Show. Joined again by Dean Jones. He's back from California. He's back from his holiday looking refreshed, tanned, and ready to delight us with his dulcet tones, talking all about the transfer window. And there's lots to delve into today, people. But before that, we are giving away more free memberships on the Football Terrace. If we hit 1,500 likes while we are live, we will gift 10 more memberships away to you. 84 given away this morning. That was an amazing show. So keep smashing the like button. Lots to talk about. Lisandro Martinez. When will there be a total agreement? We're going to touch on Raphinha and the De Jong deals. Also a bit of Cristiano Ronaldo as well. Plus, we're going to look at the situations with Tielemans. This lad that's come out of nowhere at Man United, another hijack on the line. I think his name's pronounced Brobby, is what I've been told how it's pronounced. Brobby is the name. We're going to delve into all of that and much, much more. Any questions that you've got, feel free to get them in. But Dean, how are you, mate? How was the holiday? How was the break?
It's very good, mate. Yeah. A bit of jet lag now, obviously. Two young kids who were up between 2 a.m. and 6 a.m. after getting back, so that was cool. A bit out of sorts, but amazing. Southern California, my favourite place in the world anyway. Was weird, like working on a different time zone, but it's also quite good because you got to, once you'd caught up, you then got to like really go full steam ahead in a working day and get ahead of the next day, prepare for what was coming in the UK. So that was fun. Honestly, like I was out the loop a little bit. I got back last night, and you have 2 days out the loop, and it's a long time. Like just traveling and then coming back, and then you're like, oh my goodness, what have I missed on this deal? What have I missed on this deal? Because I said Chelsea, for example, like I still see, like I come on Twitter this morning, I'm like, okay, what's the general vibe around this and that? Chelsea fans just seem to be, I mean, correct me if I'm wrong, but like really, really panicking right now about the fact that nothing's getting done and stuff. I'm like, wow, like it's still reasonably early, right? It's still quite early, but I can tell that there are fan bases right now, especially with pre-season up and underway. They want to see someone coming in. So I think like more than ever, clubs are under a bit of pressure because the season's starting early. There's going to be that gap to the World Cup. Everyone needs a good start to the season. Big time for transfers. Like this is going to be a good show, I think. Just getting through some of these big rumours and updates that are going to be coming in the next week to two.
Absolutely. I think on the Chelsea thing, it's not just Chelsea fans. I think that the theme this summer, every summer there's a theme. Sometimes it's don't sign players over 28 years of age. Sometimes it's don't sign from the Bundesliga. Every summer there seems to be a theme that social media creates. This one is all business has to be done before preseason starts, as we're screwed for the season. That seems to be the general feeling amongst fans, which is crazy because there was no way everybody's business was going to be done before pre-season started because it's all a little bit earlier this year. So people have just got to be aware of that, as it were. And as you say, lots to delve into and kind of go through. And one of the big ones, which seems to be coming to a head now, a total agreement across all parties, appears to be close. Lisandro Martinez to Manchester United. 50 million euro bid has been reported as being made. Ajax seemingly look like they're going to accept it. How do you see this one playing out? And are Arsenal still in the race, I believe? Could there be a sting in the tail for Man United in this one?
I don't think so, to be honest. I mean, like from the calls I've made and from the messages I've had from people that inform me on the information around this deal, it sounds like United are in the driving seat. It sounds like, obviously, I think Arsenal were slightly ahead of them at one point. They were on the scene a little bit earlier, but the Ten Hag factor is massive in this one. And while Arsenal had a clear vision for him, and I think it'll be a massive setback for them if they don't get him because they've really wanted the versatility that he offers as a centre back, playing on the left too. It'll be a shame for Arsenal to miss him. But for United, I really feel like Ten Hag wants somebody in there that can understand what he's trying to do, right? And so you look at what they've done so far and the marks that they're trying to make. Ultimately, this squad needs to understand how a Ten Hag team grows from nothing. How do you get that philosophy set within the side? One of the keys is to have it deep rooted, and that's at the heart of the defence. And I think having Martinez in there will be key in helping the rest of the players understand the vision of how this team will start to develop under Ten Hag. And as it was explained to me, like in the key moments early on when things go wrong, and they will go wrong, like the playing style, like the way that they're asked to use the ball, the way they're asked to position themselves, will cause players to make mistakes. Martinez, his role within that team, within that squad, will be to help people to recognize that this is normal and this is okay. And this is actually what happens in the end. Like once you start to understand this, we'll soon be playing in this way. And this happened at Ajax. So, it's a bit of just think like a human being, really. Like if you just look at this from a broader perspective, you're Lisandro Martinez. You've got an offer to go to Arsenal, which is a project that has shown some good signs, and they have got a role from in that team. Or you've got the chance to go to Man United, who aren't at the peak of their powers, who didn't make the Champions League, but they probably are still further along the road than Arsenal are. They have a manager that he recognises and understands, and they have a vision that will be clearer for him to understand, given what he's seen so far in the early years of his career. So at the moment, Man United are in the driving seat, and as I understand it, they're really, really keen to get him on board as soon as possible, hence the increased offer. And as I say, they are confident they'll get it done.
Yeah, look, I think the element there about Man United needing these players that are part of the sort of the understand the philosophy, how the manager wants to play. I think this is so key. I've seen a lot of people in the last few weeks try and put Man United down for doing it. The manager has no talent ID, he can't shop outside. Even this link to Brian Brobby, it's almost, well, Ajax were trying to sign him. It's clearly someone he knows through the Ajax world. The Malacia, the same thing. Ajax were going to sign him, and he kind of stepped in. But people say, Pep doesn't buy as many of his old players as this, and Klopp never did it. But they also didn't take over the biggest club in England and one of the biggest clubs in the world after 10 years of failure, where player power and no system, 4 or 5 different styles all being mashed into one, has ruined the football club. Like, people are taking the context of Man United's failings away to a point where I'm even hearing people like Danny Murphy on the radio today saying, I don't think these signings are going to win Man United the Premier League. What idiot thinks we were going to win the Premier League this year? It's almost like people are trying to wipe the slate clean, and they're trying to act as though Man United this summer and finished last season brilliantly, and we need 2 or 3 more players to win a league title. It's weird how the framing of Man United has been taken away from worst team in Premier League history, absolute pits in terms of morale and attitude and behaviours of players. And the fact that there needs to be a massive overhaul over the next 2 years, really, of this squad. It's all kind of being ignored. And I think it's being ignored because Man United are actually starting to pull off. I mean, Malacia is a good bit of business. They've landed Eriksen. Now it looks like Lisandro Martinez. We'll get onto De Jong a little bit later in Anthony. But United look like they might actually have a good summer. And for some reason, that's kind of triggering people, if that matters. It's kind of winding people up, especially the ex-pro pundits online. I can't really understand their saltiness, if I'm being honest.
Yeah, and I mean, it's amazing, really, that United, it just shows you what high regard United are still held in people's minds, despite what's happened since Ferguson left. Like the fact that people say, well, they won't win the title like this. It make people still expect Man United to be challenging for the title. And it's a long time since they realistically did that. And that actually is something that helps Man United when it comes to signing players, because players believe that too. Players believe that they are only going to be 2 signings away from genuinely challenging from that title. And some seasons you are, some seasons you're not. Like, let's be realistic. Like next season, Man City and Liverpool, they shouldn't really give anybody else in the country a chance to catch him. But Man United, they are built on such heritage and tradition and greatness that they always believe they're on the verge of getting back there. And rightly so. Liverpool always thought it. And Man United will always think it. And I think that those 2 teams are set apart from every other club in the country in that regard. I don't think that this will happen with Man City. I mean, I could be wrong there. Like, this is something new we're seeing at Man City. This certainly like modern day dominance, no doubt about it. But will they hold that still? Say Pep leaves next year, just for example, and then they didn't win the league for 8 years. Would people still be talking about them like on the brink of returning, or would you say, okay, that was just a moment in their history, and like now we're back to how Man City used to be? It's just the way perceived.
I agree, and a lot of young Liverpool fans you speak to online, there's this weird notion that Gerrard never played in any good teams. We weren't good for 20 odd years. Most summers, during the Hodgson, Hickson, Gillette era, it wasn't true. But most of my childhood through the early 90s, mid 90s, early noughties, mid noughties, every year Liverpool was spoken about after the window as a team that could challenge for the title or win the league. There wasn't a season where they weren't looked at or predicted of winning the league. You know, after 5, 10, 15 years not winning one, every year they were. And I totally get it. But they never fell to this level of, they never got as bad as Man United were last year. Although we still finished, where we finished 6th in the league. Yeah. And they finished lower than that. The kind of fallout after how bad we were was there. So I'm happy that Man United are doing this business. I'm always wary of a sting in the tail with how things have kind of gone. And that kind of leads on to another player that sort of Chelsea are connected to. Obviously, Frenkie de Jong. The story hasn't really changed all summer. Barca want to sell him for multiple reasons, the main one being money. He kind of would like to stay at Barca, but equally doesn't want to stay there and take a massive pay cut. You then had the story yesterday of Chelsea coming in and hijacking him. And now, depending on the journalist, it's either he prefers Chelsea or Man United. What's your understanding of the latest between both Chelsea and Man United trying to sign Frenkie de Jong?
I mean, my information is that it's still Man United in the driving seat on this one. Chelsea, I think they've got some interest in him because it's an area of the field that they might be forced to address later on in this transfer window. Talked on here before about how I expect if they need a central midfielder that it'll be Declan Rice that they suss out first and foremost. Let's not forget too that they've got Jude Bellingham on the radar, like this player that Tuchel absolutely loves. So I think Frenkie would come down below both of those players in terms of who they would ideally want. I'm not saying he's worse than either of those players at all, but I don't think that he's the exact fit of player that they're looking for right now. I think that it's interesting. Obviously, Barca suddenly trying to claim that they would like to keep de Jong and that other teams are interested. And I'd say that's pretty typical for a team that want to be seen in a certain light. Eventually, Barca, when de Jong signs for United, will say the deal was just too good to turn down. Good luck to him. We will move on as a club. It was just one that had to be done at the end of the day. Look, work is still going on, and I think it's still likely that United get Frenkie de Jong. It's definitely a deal that is crawling towards completion rather than accelerating over the line. But I think it's probably annoying. From some Man United fans' perspective, I can understand. You want a player to be desperate to join. Frenkie de Jong is not desperate to join Man United. That's pretty clear from this situation, right? But that's okay. And this will probably be a theme for what I talk about today. It's okay to be the rung down from Barcelona because almost everybody is. And at Man United at one point, maybe you weren't. But right now, if Frenkie de Jong would prefer to be at Barcelona, but if that's not going to work out, then yeah, happy to join Man United. Then fine. The thing with Man United now, they have to get this deal done. And so you talk about the fact that they want him to pay off the debts owed to him or, help cut the wage, whatever. Man United are in a tough situation now because I can see that they're almost going to have to do that. I think it's going to cost them a lot of money to get Frenkie de Jong in all sorts of different ways at this point. But ultimately, I do think, and most people I speak to think this too, that Frenkie de Jong will become a Man United player. It's just being dragged out. And sadly, that's pretty typical of how Man United transfers work.
It has been, most certainly. I think what's interesting for me, and I keep getting told I'm spinning everything into a positive. From what I read, a lot of this is more Barca holding this up than it is Manchester United this time round. A lot of the reports that came out, I think it was somebody at the Times. I don't remember which reporter it was now, very much about there's £90 million of deferred wages that Barca know they have to pay de Jong, but essentially they're trying to get a large percentage of that put in the fixed fee. So Man United are essentially paying it. And I can understand why Man United don't want to pay that because it's almost, hang on, that's not the valuation you hold for the player. That's us paying your wage bill, which is, I don't, the thing is, I want the deal done, but if that's true, I don't want my club playing Barca's wage bill off. I don't know. There's part of me that just feels like, and maybe that's natural. Maybe sometimes these fees happen in that way because clubs owe debts on things and they need to raise the money. Maybe it's quite normal.
That's it. Yeah.
We're just not told that's why the fee was so much. Maybe it is a normal thing, but the way it's kind of being framed, I sort of sit there as a Man United fan and think, I ain't paying your wages. That's for you to do. But Yeah, look, for me, I agree with your first point 110%. This is a deal United now can't allow to slip through their fingers, because if after 7 weeks of working on the deal, Chelsea did take him or it fell apart, United need to avoid embarrassment this summer at least. They don't need an embarrassing situation where you fail on a big track. We don't need Jadon Sancho 2.0. We need over the line holding that shirt. And I agree as well. I think a lot of fans are kind of, oh, we're buying a player that doesn't really want to be here. But history is littered with these examples. David Beckham to Real Madrid is a massive example. He didn't want to go.
Yeah.
He spoke about how he sat in his car when Fergie told him he sold him and cried his eyes out, and he was going Real Madrid.
And that's it. And once he goes to United, if he goes to United, like, he will have huge motivation and drive to do well there. And so, like, if he lands at United, like, it'll be a really exciting time. It'll be an unbelievable transfer. Frenkie de Jong's a phenomenal footballer, and this is the other thing to understand, is that, like, he's going to be used much better by Ten Hag than he has been at Barcelona so far. Like, Ten Hag will use him as you're supposed to use Frenkie de Jong. He hasn't been utilised at all so far at Barcelona. Maybe that would change if he was to get another crack at it next season. Maybe the team shape changes a little bit, or his role changes a bit. But ultimately, the other thing I think that really does help other transfers move on now is that Eriksen is on the verge of signing, because Eriksen wanted to know that where United's vision was, wanted to know who else was coming. Well, Frenkie wanted to know that too. Darwin Núñez wanted to know that too. They were like, I don't want to commit to being that first guy and then the others don't follow me. Yeah. And so you kind of need this trail. And I think that Eriksen, once he puts pen to paper and you get that thing, I do believe that could be the trigger point at which Frenkie de Jong becomes more convinced. Okay, like, Christian Eriksen's in there. Okay, they're building here, they're building there. I don't think it'll be too fussed about what's going on with Ronaldo. I think that's probably by the by. Whatever happens, Ronaldo's only there for one more year anyway. So, yeah, I do think that the Eriksen signing is pretty significant, and United just need to unveil someone of some authority and significance so that it appeases everybody.
Yeah, I agree with you. I think something you said that the 2 weeks ago was De Jong doesn't want to be the first signing, and in fact, maybe by the end of this weekend, whether they're holding the shirts up or, as well as I do, behind the scenes, the players don't need the fanfare. If he knows that Eriksen's joining, if he knows that Lisandro Martinez is joining, and now the club's going to move on to Anthony or somebody else, that's going to make Frenkie de Jong feel a lot better about the situation. As you said a couple of weeks ago, there was actually a question here from Football Matters FC that says, has Eriksen changed his mind? The Brentford manager seems to think Eriksen hasn't made his mind up yet.
I mean, it's a really strange one. Like, I was told like weeks back that he wasn't going to Brentford, and then it came back on the agenda, and I was like, oh, have I like picked up some moody info here? I still don't believe he's going back to Brentford. I think that the reason he was really considered Brentford is not so much loyalty and the thank you for giving him a pathway back into football. Like, loads of clubs are willing to give Christian Eriksen a pathway back into football. But what it was is that his role in that team was actually one that really suited him. And he actually knows he can go to Brentford and he will play every single week, and can properly build himself up again over the course of the year. Whereas, obviously, if you go into Man United, you've got a lot of competition for places. Same with him going back to Tottenham. Tottenham obviously have signed other people now that are reasonably similar. The other thing to consider with Man United is, like, could there be, and I mean, I'm not saying that this will definitely happen, but one person I spoke to did say as a consideration is, like, could he be used on the right side at times? Like, obviously he's not going to be an out-and-out winger that gets at you, but in an attacking three, if you had Jadon Sancho one side, if you have Ronaldo or Rashford through the middle, and then you had Christian Eriksen on the right, like, he's done it before. Like, he can play as a right-sided forward, and he's not a winger or proper forward in that sense, but he can deliver an unbelievable cross. He can see a pass. His positional play is great. He can help back up your right back. You can trust him. There are a lot of reasons to believe that it's plausible that Christian Eriksen might not just play as the midfielder that you imagine, or be competing with, to play along De Jong or to play in Bruno's position. Like, it might be that there are other roles in this team for him too to consider. But yeah, I do think it's significant. And going back and looking at just the overall how United's market's going to look and what their window will look like. De Jong, no, he didn't want to be the the first signing through the door, but I think he quite likes the idea of being the biggest signing through the door this summer. And I think that is something that could be the big storyline for United.
Yeah, and interesting comment. Just breaking now, Mike Verveil from the Netherlands has stated that Ajax are still saying that the departure of Lisandro Martinez is out of the question, even with the current bid at 50 million euros. So Man United will have to go even higher. So
of course they are. Of course they are. Yeah. But this is Ten Hag's not going to pursue these players if he knows it's completely off the table. Not going to waste his time, is he? And if anyone's going to have a gauge of what's going on with those players and how that club works, he knows. So of course Ajax are pushing the boat out. I know there was a report from Duncan Castles on Ajax talking about how I think it was 106 million a combined fee for Anthony and Lisandro. I don't think that's a combined deal, by the way. I don't know if that was meant to read like they were going to arrive together in this combined package.
I just read. I assumed it was just if they buy both, that's what the combined total.
Exactly that. Yeah. So there'll be separate deals. Combining players to announce them at the same time is extremely difficult. Chelsea actually looked into that with Sterling and Nathan Ake, but it wasn't plausible. So of course Ajax are going to drive up the price. They want to get everything they can for these players, but ultimately, United have been creeping towards the 50 million anyway. This is the player that they feel can help them step up. They know too that there's competition between two clubs here, Arsenal and Man United, so they want them to play off against each other. They might think, right, if United might come in now at 55 million and Arsenal won't go that high. Talk's going to be continuing too over Anthony, who is definitely a prime target for their attack. And I think it's clear that both of these players see their future as being away from Ajax. I think both of them can identify with the fact that they would like to play for Man United if it can open up. So Ajax will come to terms with that. Ajax might even have already come to terms with that, but they need to get every penny they can out of these players. That's why they bring through certain types of talent. That's why they recruit certain age groups and identities, because they know there'll be a sell on.
Their business model is to sell their players. It's one of the other reasons why when Man United fans are getting angry that De Jong, Ten Hag wants to bring his players back together, is from his point of view, he never got the full potential out of that group that got to the Champions League semi-final because they all got sold. There must be a part of him that thinks, I'd love idealistically to get the majority back together, add some extra quality around them and see what I could do. If he had those players and that talent at Man City or at Liverpool or at Man United or at Bayern Munich, that team could have gone on to be a great side. So there's loads to do within that. And I'm not surprised to see the news come out saying they're saying no to it. The Arsenal involvement is key, because while there's another team involved, they're going to try and create a bidding war. It's as simple as that. Why would you not? Why would you not do that? It makes a lot of sense. Viewers, please make sure the like button is being smashed for us. 1,500 likes and we'll gift out 10 free memberships to all of you. We've got Chelsea updates, Arsenal updates on the way in relation to Tielemans and what are they going to do now if they don't get Lisandro Martinez. But I wanted to touch on Chelsea. They've got a lot of deals kind of going on at the moment. There's talk of Ronaldo. Of course, there's the Raphinha situation that's kind of going on. What's the latest at Chelsea right now?
Chaos. It's a pretty weird one. I mean, for Todd Bowley he's been quite unorthodox, really, in terms of his approach to the market. He's being very hands-on. I really like it. I think that it's fun as a journalist to find out how he's making approaches, how matter of fact he's being about the way that he's approaching a club or ringing up an owner and saying, I'll give you, 70 million plus this player for Ligt or whatever it is.
It's like American football. It's like watching. Do you ever see the great transfer scenes in Moneyball, with Brad Pitt? It sounds and feels like that. Yeah.
But it's going to, isn't it? Because this is his background, and this is how he's used to doing business in the sporting world, and this football world isn't used to that, isn't maybe even prepared for that, and so some of the advances he's made have not been laughed out of town, but certainly taken people aback because that they're just not familiar with his direct approach to the signings, and some people I speak to, I'll be frank, don't think it's working. They think that, you need to be a bit more neat and astute in the way that you approach clubs. But other people say, well, look, this is how Chelsea are now. This is a new Chelsea. This isn't Roman Abramovich's Chelsea. And they're going out into that market and they're letting everybody know what they want, who they want, how much they'll pay. And they want people to know that Chelsea mean business next season. And they really are trying to send out that message. So far, it's obviously not playing out because the players aren't landing. Raheem Sterling's on the verge of doing so. But just to look at De Ligt, for example, I mean, Chelsea's desire for this player is clear. I wrote a transfer guide in May for Give Me Sport and said one of the headings was dream signing. And everyone I spoke to connected with Chelsea was like, who's the dream signing? They were in no doubt that De Ligt would be the guy that Tuchel would sign if he could just take one player right now. Say it was a draft like in America and you had your first pick, he'd be like, right, let's have De Ligt at the heart of my defence. So the fact De Ligt even has become available is extremely interesting. But now it's all about the negotiations that are needed to get the player and to wholly convince the player too that this is the place for him. In Italy, there does seem to be a feeling that Chelsea are still too far away from making the breakthrough that is needed. I think that for a genuine breakthrough in these talks, they want to get to 100 million euros. Chelsea haven't gone that high. I don't even know if Bayern will go that high, to be honest. But Bayern, the fact they are now involved in this conversation doesn't particularly help Chelsea. They were hoping to have an almost clear run at De Ligt and didn't really see this one coming. So that's a slight problem. And then there's obviously the attacking situation and what's going on with Raphinha and Ousmane Dembele. I mean, again, it's a situation they could have done without because ultimately it looks like De Ligt would prefer Bayern Munich. It looks like Raphinha would prefer Barcelona. It looks like Ousmane Dembele would prefer Barcelona. But it's the same thing I said when I was talking about Man United. They are the next step down. So if these players do not choose that club, then they'll come to Chelsea. Not the worst situation in the world. Like Bayern Munich win the league every single year. So why not go there if you're De Ligt? Why not be at the top level in Bundesliga and try and win the Champions League in that sense next season? Raphinha, been since day one, before day one, to be honest, before an offer had even gone in, Raphinha knew there was interest from Barca. That's where he wanted to go. There was loads of other interest. And he's actually been very open-minded about where he could end up. But in his mind, if he was to get that pick of clubs, he would go to Barcelona. We don't yet know if it's going to become plausible. I mean, the big thing with Raphinha is the terms of the payment, which are an issue, like the timings of when will Leeds actually get this cash. It's all very well matching the offer that Chelsea are going to make, but when are we actually going to get this money? And how do you intend to prove that? So that's one of the stumbling blocks that's been dragging it on. And it also doesn't seem plausible that they could have Ousmane Dembele and Raphinha in that squad, which they're trying to claim. Like they claim everything they can in the world. And so do Chelsea then end up with whichever of those players doesn't stay at Barcelona? There's a lot of dominoes in play here, and they're waiting for them to all fall into place.
Well, absolutely. And I think that it's interesting what you say because there's been I'm hearing multiple different reports about Bowley's approach. Some like the talk is that Leeds have really liked the directness, the speed of which that he wants to work. They would though, because they just want the Raphinha situation resolved. If you're a club that wants to make this marinate and take time and create bidding wars, you're not going to really appreciate how Todd Bowley's working. But let's see how that works out. The Raphinha deal is really interesting because again, it's been reported today that Barca have matched the same monetary value as Chelsea, but they haven't reached the base fee, as it were. So they're not paying as much up front. It's predominantly add-ons. So it's going to be really interesting to see what happens because, as you say, Barca are making a lot of claims. I mean, they sit in a room and negotiate with Man United in the one hand, and then 30 seconds later, go out in the cameras and go that De Jong's not for sale. We know they're liars. Like they're lying in public. The same as here. There's no way, in my opinion, your Dembele and Raphinha are going to both end up staying, and Chelsea are just going to pick the bones out of what's remaining. And either of those players is good quality. I mean, I'd prefer Raphinha over Dembele purely on availability. I just think Dembele will spend half the season out injured potentially, but he is a top class talent as well. So
Yeah.
I think Chelsea fans got to remain patient. I'm really intrigued about the Raphinha situation though, because the reports suggest that he's open to Chelsea, would be happy to join Chelsea. It's just Barca are the first choice. Is that what you've kind of heard around Raphinha?
Yeah, look, I'll be honest. I'll be amazed if he doesn't end up at Barcelona at this point. Like, he really wants to end up there. Barcelona tend to find a way to make things happen when they really want somebody. They do really want him. And I think that the priority for both of those is that it happens. So I think it will happen. It would take a massive knockdown for him to end up at Chelsea. But it doesn't mean Chelsea have given up hope. And obviously, they've got fallback options in the background. Rafael Leao, for example, is somebody that they might look to do some late work on if they had to. But like that comment makes me laugh. Like Bowley's credit, he's traveling all over Europe taking charge of the meetings. Like, exactly, like it made me laugh yesterday. I was like, see a picture of Bowley's like rocked up in Barcelona or whatever, and it was like, this is great. Like, this is such fun to see somebody like he's going on a European tour trying to sign the players face to face, or like just cause a bit of panic and meet these people.
Well, they always say like a lot of Australians and Americans, Canadians, they kind of move to the UK to use it as a base, and then like travel across Europe to like travel like backpacks. He's kind of doing it on like an upper class rich man scale. And I go live in England, and then he probably like, catching the sights. What he said when he came out of the restaurant made me die, because the press were like, what's going on? He went, "That's really good food in there." Made me laugh. I heard it, and I was like, I quite like him. He's a good character, and I think that
this is it. And like it's the bluntness. I mean, this is just how working life is in America. I mean, I've worked for a company. When I was at Bleacher Report, for example, we had a New York office, and the way that New York employees would deal with day-to-day work was so different to the way we were in London. It was so laid back and like casual, and some nice music on in the background. Pop downstairs, have a game of FIFA and all that. And, you get into the New York office, and it's so intense, and everybody's working so hard to make things happen and stuff. And it's just a totally different work ethic, and it's kind of the American way. And like, I do think like their work ethic is stronger. Like, I know that like a lot of the people working around Chelsea before this weren't necessarily English per se anyway, but like they weren't American businessmen, and they do tend to make things happen, or at least give everything they possibly can. He wants to get to the end of this transfer window and be exhausted. He wants to want a holiday at the end of this window, because he gave Tuchel, he gave Chelsea absolutely everything he possibly could.
There's been footballing directors or technical directors or the equivalents at clubs like Arsenal and Man United that have taken holidays in the middle of the window, which I've never ever. I know that you can pick up a phone and go on your laptop, but you want to be readily available to jump on a private jet and take a half an hour flight to somewhere close in Europe to do a deal. You don't want to be, you know what I mean?
That's what made me laugh about. Yeah, it's like when Rangnick was supposed to be saying as advisor to Man United, but it's like, well, I've now got another job with Austria, so that moves me out for the first 3 weeks of the transfer window.
It was absolutely crazy. It's absolutely crazy. It says here, Dean, do you believe Barca will sign Dembele and Raphinha? No, one or the other is what you said, right?
I think it's one or the other. Yeah, I mean, I believe that Barca believe they can do both. Yeah, I do believe that they believe they can do anything, but I don't believe it will become plausible, and Chelsea don't either, from what I understand it.
Yeah, that makes sense. What of Ronaldo and Chelsea? Like, obviously, it's been discussed for the last 2 days. Everybody's got a difference of opinion. Like, what have you heard about this deal? When it does look like he's leaving Man United, he's not being included in the players' names that are going to be on tour. So right now, United are not expecting him to be on tour. There was a special video that was meant to go out today about the shirt that's been delayed in terms of its release. It very much looks like he's going to leave Man United. But will it be Chelsea that sign Ronaldo, in your opinion?
I'd be very surprised. I'd be very surprised if he did end up signing for Chelsea. I mean, it's really helped Ronaldo and the people that work around him that they've even had a nibble at this, because it means they now have a market for Ronaldo. They can go to other clubs and pitch him, say, but you've got to move fast because Chelsea are interested in. And there is an interest. You can't deny that. Like, there have been talks and they have showed an interest. But dig a bit deeper, and, Thomas Tuchel is in charge of overseeing this, right? And Tuchel has a vision for how he wants Chelsea to grow. And I mean, he's had this in his mind now for months and months of how he wants where he wants this team to go. And he had Lukaku pushed on him last year and didn't necessarily want him, took him because he's a good player, thought he could make it work. It didn't work. To now suddenly go back on the plans that they had for that attack, sign Ronaldo, you're suddenly in a very similar situation to Lukaku, because Lukaku was frustrated that Chelsea didn't play to his strengths. He wasn't successful at Chelsea in his mind because Chelsea didn't play his way. Okay, well, what's Ronaldo going to do? Ronaldo's going to be that times 10. Like, Ronaldo's going to want to play every game. Ronaldo's going to want to make sure, you've seen it at United already, like with all the arm waving. You see how he acts, and he's, walks down the tunnel when things aren't going his way. In my mind, from everything I've heard and spoken about Tuchel and the way that he's planning, I don't see how it suits him to sign Cristiano Ronaldo right now. It just doesn't make any sense to me. So, but yeah, they have shown an interest. So I'm not going to rule out Ronaldo going to Chelsea, because it could happen. And there's certainly, like, they want to create a market for Cristiano Ronaldo right now. I've just been to LA, as we talked about. And out there, LAFC are obviously making a few waves. They've got Gareth Bale. They're talking about Jesse Lingard. But the guy that they think they'll get as their next big one is Ronaldo. And they're like, why not? Like, we're setting out here with intent. Ronaldo's not happy in Europe anymore. And I'm like, do you know what? Like, Ronaldo's probably only a year or two away from a move like that. And I can see how it could open up. But what is that interim period? What does Ronaldo genuinely see? I know he's talked about having 3 or 4 years in Europe. I'm not totally convinced about that,
I think it is, honestly, I think I'd love to win more trophies. Of course you would. Another Champions League. You'd love to win another league. I think the most important thing to him, though, that's realistic, is I've got to keep scoring Champions League goals while Messi's still in the Champions League. I think what would kill Ronaldo would be leaving now and going to America, and over the next 2 years, Messi pips him and becomes the highest goal scorer in the Champions League ever. Because you wouldn't put it beyond Messi just to click better into place this year at PSG and just have a barnstorming year and score 7-8 goals in the Champions League. And then Ronaldo will be sitting there thinking, hang on a minute, Ronaldo is a player that he loves all those individual records and he wants all of them. So I think for him, he wants to, and if Man United win the Champions League, I 110% think he'd just stay, because he knows that it's just that he doesn't want those Europa League goals. He wants Champions League goals. So
I mean, the issue I've got, I guess, from Ronaldo's point of view, is that if this was his stance all along, if that he was only coming back to United if they were going to be a Champions League club, then this shouldn't suddenly be something we're talking about now. As soon as United missed out on the top 4, they should have known that would not have been enough to keep Ronaldo, so that they already had a plan in motion to say, for example, go and get Nunez. Like, maybe United, if they'd have known this back in May, maybe even April, if this is genuinely his stance, then maybe they would have paid out that cash to get Nunez and know that they've got the next big thing coming through. Because, like, we all knew when Ronaldo came back to United that, like, he had this hope that he could be this talismanic figure that could suddenly push them maybe even towards the title. Who knows? Like, it was unlikely, but, like, maybe he could push them into that conversation. And, despite his couple of hat-tricks, it didn't really work out for him. But I just feel like there must be some frustration in that, from that point of view, because now United are stuck when it comes to centre forward if Ronaldo does go anywhere else.
I've been asked this question a lot this week. Like, how would you feel? Like, him going to Chelsea doesn't scare me. It's going to be a year or so. 1 year, like, he could score lots of goals there, but it isn't like they're signing one of our greatest players who's still only 24 that you're going to have to watch for a decade destroy you. Man United have got to. What we can't do, though, is panic and bring in another Igalo as our main striker next year and waste money. It's almost, I'd rather strengthen the right back position and be weaker up front and then buy correctly in January or the following summer and not panic. I mean, there's talk of this Brobby. Again, if that's who's being earmarked as our Ronaldo, as in our main number 9 for the next 5-6 years, that's a disaster. That can't be the guy, because I don't think he's shown enough yet anywhere to, it's not like he's just come off the back of a 35 goal scoring season and you think, wow, okay, he scored 7 goals. Like, it's not, for me, the excitement isn't there. So it's going to be really intriguing.
I think, I was going to say, I think the one thing to consider in all this, that, like, I know that, like, the message being, like, sent out is like, United won't sell Ronaldo. He's not for sale. Like, he's not for sale, but I don't think that means United would not sell Ronaldo. I think that's the other thing to take into account here. I don't believe that United will keep Ronaldo at all costs. I think, I was speaking to someone the other day. They said, well, why not play Rashford as a centre forward for a bit? Why not try him in pre-season? Rashford will be your centre forward in pre-season. What's Rashford's big problem? Confidence. What if he could turn Rashford into a centre forward in pre-season? He gets goals, gets his confidence back. And even if it's not the long-term answer to Cristiano Ronaldo, what if he can be a solution to this problem that they're in right now while they try to find another forward that can come in and push Rashford on? Like, I don't know if that's necessarily the answer, but it's certainly something to consider.
But if you look at City, we're talking different levels. City were trying to win the league and the Champions League. Man United are trying to get back into the top 4 next season, but they missed out on Harry Kane, didn't panic, and then ended up with Haaland. That is essentially what Man United need to do, not end up buying a striker that doesn't fit the system, doesn't fit the style. We've done it so many times before where players didn't really want to join and we've overpaid them to come. I just don't want us to repeat that mistake. Like, that actually is more of a worry to me than losing Ronaldo. I don't want, because those are the mistakes that have cost us more in the longer term than actually missing out on people. The prime example is we panicked because we didn't buy a midfielder for David Moyes, and we ended up paying £10 million more than we should have done for Fellaini, and he was never the right person for the kind of midfielder we needed. We needed a Paul Scholes replacement, and we ended up with Marouane and Fellaini, and I don't want that mistake to happen for Ten Hag, especially year one. And I think that's what Man United fans, for me, that's what I'm more cautious of. And going to Chelsea, again, I'm a bit like you. I can kind of see it happening, but equally only if it's like, we're going to give you a 1-year deal and we're going to go for a different striker next summer.
That's it.
For 1 year, it works for Chelsea. If you start 2-year deals, I think that's a bit of a mistake because he was slowing down last year. Mother Nature is going to catch up. He's going to get He's going to get slower each year now as he gets older, without disrespect to Cristiano Ronaldo. So I think a 1-year deal wouldn't be too bad.
Also, like, I'd like to see United's stance in this be like, okay, you can go, but you're not going for £15 million. You're Cristiano Ronaldo. I don't care if you've got 1 year left in your contract. If Man United were trying to sign Cristiano Ronaldo right now from somebody else, would they be getting him for £15 million? No, they wouldn't. They'd be being forced to probably pay a big premium on that. Like, so that's the other thing I'd like to see United here do, is like, play hardball yourselves. Like, put a figure on Ronaldo that forces people to really come out and play and like see if they really do want this player. Like, what's his wages going to be elsewhere? Like 350, 400 grand a week. Fine, if Chelsea want to do that, then they can do that. But yeah, that fee that I've seen mooted of £15 million for Ronaldo, I don't think that they should be willing to do that. I think they should be like, hang on, we are held to ransom. Every time we want a player, we are held to ransom. Like Lisandro Martinez, you're asking us to pay £60 million for a young defender that's barely done anything in the game. We have here one of the greatest players of all time, and you want him for £15 million. I'm afraid it's not happening. We'd rather keep him and he's got the hump.
Well, this is it, and this is what these are the soft factors and the kind of non-footballing elements that United have got to get right. Why? Let's talk Liverpool for a second. They've just got £17 million for Nico Williams.
Yeah, I mean, that's unbelievable business.
They've got 25 million for Jordan Ibe. They've got over £20 million for Brewster. This is what I mean. Now, yes, those guys have all got their careers ahead of them. There's potential sell-on value. There is you invest in the future. But Ronaldo will score more goals next year for Chelsea as a striker, for instance, than any other player that anyone else they buy this year. He'll do that in their team and in their system. So for 1 year, 20 million, 25 million pounds is fair. And I'd like to see Man United be a little bit tougher, but I doubt it. A few people asking in the comments section, any Rice news or updates out there at the minute about Declan Rice to Chelsea?
Yeah, no, I haven't heard any more on it in the last couple of weeks. There's definitely there's been stuff bubbling in the background. I think that Chelsea know it's going to be hard work. I think that they want to get the absolute priority signings sorted. Declan Rice, isn't the priority right now. It's pretty clear. Like they have to get this centre back situation sorted. They have to sort out the forwards, and then they can look into like these luxury signings, if you like. And that's kind of how Rice has been dressed up to me. Like at the moment, they've still got Jorginho and Kante, and they've got other players coming that could fight for those places. Conor Gallagher and Mason Mount might be in a, one way it was talked to me was like, what if you have Conor Gallagher and Mason Mount in the midfield with one other and things like this? So there's lots to consider. So there's no update on Declan Rice as it stands right now. I do expect that to change in the next couple of weeks, so I'll make sure I check it out.
Yeah, I mean, again, as you say, it's certainly intriguing. I mean, if Chelsea were to sign De Jong, it almost ends. It depends where you want to play De Jong, but De Jong wants to go back to being that central figure. That's what Declan Rice wants to be. So it ends that. So yeah, but it's certainly going to be intriguing. Staying in London, I know we've touched on Arsenal a few times already, without speaking about them in detail. I do believe that they were losing 2-0 at halftime. They made their subs. Gabriel Jesus has scored. I believe they are leading 3-2 now in their game. After Arsenal fans having meltdowns online, I can see because they weren't winning straight away. Yeah. I mean, anyone who gets angry over preseason games has got a problem, especially when none of your first team start the first match. But anyway, Youri Tielemans is said to be waiting for this official bid. There's talk of Man United maybe getting involved. What's the latest around this? Because the word was they called their interest in him to sign Martinez and Raphinha. Those two deals haven't happened for Arsenal. Surely now they just go straight back in for Tielemans, or could they just be going in a different direction and Tielemans maybe falling out of their plans? Like, what's the latest as far as you're aware surrounding that?
I think they want all of those. All those positions need fixing. That's one of the objectives of this transfer window is to get, no doubt, a versatile defender. They want another midfielder in the mould of Tielemans. He's not the only one that they're looking at. And then Raphinha, again, is a bit of a luxury. Let's see what I can do with Pepe. Let's see what ends up happening on that front. But Raphinha was a door that was open to them because they knew that, for a price of around £50 million, there could be a deal done, and they were pretty much the first on the scene, so they gave it a go. But ultimately, I think that with Tielemans, like, this is a pretty decent deal in terms of the value of the player. I think you could do a deal for Tielemans at £30 million. And I remember talking about this way back. And I mean, Leicester fans particularly haven't been happy about this. I mean, I think at one point I even said that Leicester would be willing to sell Tielemans for £25 million. And people weren't happy about that. But again, this is a player who isn't committing his future to the club. This is a player who Brendan Rodgers actually feels he can replace, and actually has a drive to try and play Champions League football, and he doesn't think he can do that with Leicester. So Arsenal obviously have been in negotiations about this player. There's no secret about that at all. At times, I think it's probably been reported to be ahead of where it's actually at, but he is a player that's being looked at. One thing that we need to be cautious of is that Fabio Vieira came out of nowhere. There was barely a mention of it, and they got it done. I think from as a journalist, that's frustrating when it happens and something just pops out. I like it in a way because it means that we can still be surprised in transfer windows. Yeah. It's sometimes a bit boring and predictable. So it was nice to see a club like Arsenal catch us by surprise. It's normally like a Liverpool that would do that. But I'm told that like there are other less obvious names that Arsenal are looking at right now. So like it's not like Tielemans or bust right now. And that's why, again, they won't be held to ransom by the player. Just because I think Arsenal are probably most advanced with this. I think it's most likely to join them. But I also think Arsenal are open-minded about the situation.
Yeah, listen, so there seems to be, I've said all along, I didn't believe completely that they called, the story was, we're going to call on Tielemans because he's ours, deal with other business to come back to him later because nobody else is looking at him. I always think of that as, again, I just brought up to believe a bird in the hand is worth two in the bush. It also, those other two players didn't play in his position. Therefore, why would you not just get that? People have this weird notion that you can only work on one deal at a time. Like, get that deal done, and then you move on to the two that were going to be really hard. The fact is, it's been 3 weeks. That deal would have been completed. They held the shirt by now. You still be working on those other two deals. I've always felt that they're looking at someone else. There's another option out there. Of course, there was talk about Milinkovic-Savic this week.
Again, he's twice. I think it's twice the price of what you have to pay for Tielemans. Like that, there's considerations like that. I know Benacer as well has been linked with Arsenal, and like he's probably a similar valuation. I reckon you probably get Benacer around £30 million. To be honest, if I was going for one of those two players, I'd be inclined to just go with Tielemans just because of the fact he's in the Premier League. But again, it's about price points too. So like Milinkovic-Savic, don't get me wrong, like he's been on the radar. He's been on the radar for a lot of Premier League clubs, to be honest, for the last 3 years. But like he's up here, he's like a £55 million footballer. Whereas there is a market of players that are like 25 to 30 million pound, and the standard is just not big enough that I think you need to be paying that premium.
Yeah, listen, I agree. I think that so my thoughts on the Milinkovic-Savic deal were if they could get the price down to maybe only being £20 million more than Tielemans, maybe. But I suppose knowing Tielemans wants to join gives you that freedom to be able to act. Where it can become interesting, and I read this week that Tottenham are completely distancing themselves. But if somebody else was to go in for Tielemans, that's when I get excited in the transfer market, because then Arsenal have a decision to make. So if Man United made an official bid today, it would change, and I'm just using them as examples. They're being connected. Then Arsenal's mindset moves to, I know we're chasing some other people, but if we do that and fail and Tielemans gone to Man United, then it leaves us a little bit short. So yeah. I like the dynamic of it. But then we also know what happens. You'll know this. It wouldn't be beyond the agent to go out, all right, Man United are about to put a bid in to try and force Arsenal along. And yeah, I enjoy it. But yeah, there's so many sort of ups and downs. What do you think Arsenal will do? It doesn't look like they're going to get Raphinha. I would say almost an impossibility. United are leading with Lissandro. Will there be other targets? Are there other targets you've been made aware of in those positions that Arsenal could focus on?
I mean, it's people like Serge Gnabry, who he's not, I wouldn't say there's an active pursuit right now of Serge Gnabry, but he's somebody whose future is up in the air. Like, new talks are happening at Bayern Munich, and I would expect that if those talks did not go his way, that he could become a player on the market, and that Arsenal might try their hand in that sense. Again, I don't think that this is a position that is of utmost importance right now at this early stage of pre-season. I feel that this is one that you could actually do at the back end of the transfer window. Once a few other pieces have fallen into place elsewhere, once a few more players have thrown tantrums and say they're not happy about how they're fitting in elsewhere because a new player's coming to replace them, whatever it is, it's a luxury player, if you ask me. And luxury players can be signed late on. And it's actually a lovely way to end a window. If you sign in, a dynamic forward who's a wide player, winger, or like get stuck in. And there are a few types of footballer that you sign in the last week of the transfer window, and everyone's so happy and it lifts everyone after the season's begun. I wonder if that's what Arsenal end up doing, to be honest. And Gnabry is just one of the players that could happen with. But there are definitely a few other targets that they've got in mind if Raphinha doesn't work out, which it's probably not going to, let's be honest.
I hear that. I do. Viewers, we're on 700 likes. If we hit 1,500 during this show, we'll gift out 10 free memberships. You're a bit light on the likes tonight. Facebook are ahead of you by 327. You're being smashed by Facebook, YouTube, so make sure you sort that out for us. Now, some questions here. First one says, do you think there's any real interest in Dybala by Manchester United?
There's always been some interest in Dybala from United, so I've always find this one interesting. I think it's a player that at a time when Ronaldo's leaving, that they should definitely have an eye on. Of course, he's a different type of footballer. As I say, I've been traveling for the past 2 days, so I haven't been hot on this one. But I was catching up on it earlier and reading like his wage demand's actually not what you might have expected Dybala's to be. Like, he might be more affordable than most clubs in the Premier League would initially have thought. My hunch is that Dybala doesn't come to the Premier League. I just have that feeling that it doesn't happen. We were always led to believe that like it'd be an Inter Milan or something. But if he's going to come to the Premier League, I can see him being enticed by a club like Man United because of the history.
I hear that. Phil here says, any chance City sign a replacement for Sterling?
I mean, they don't need to, because like as I was speaking to a guy at City last week, and he said, you go through the squad right now, and we've still got 2 players in every position. And I mean, granted, he's talking about, in this instance, a couple of guys that are like on the verge of the first team, ready to make their breakthrough. Delapse and Palmer, Palmer, they've got big visions for Palmer next season, and so I don't think they really want to block the pathway of these guys early on. And I think it is worth considering. I'm not sure if I said on this on here last week or not, but the early part of this season, the fact that it's condensed and there's not as many game weeks means that there is an inclination for some clubs that, like, if it's not an urgent signing, they could wait it out until after the World Cup. There's going to be a new market, and like we wouldn't really have seen before, because clubs are going to have a longer part of the season still to come from Boxing Day onwards, whatever it is now. So from January, you want to, the bulk of your season is still to come, and you haven't got that caution anymore of like, what if so and so gets injured at the World Cup? What if this happens? Like, what if we don't get off to? You've seen how your season started to pan out. It's not. There's still time to fix it. So in the case of Man City replacing Sterling, I don't think it's urgent. No.
I think as well that they've signed 2 strikers. You get the sense that the system is going to slightly change next year in terms of being more central focus. Jack Grealish, more game time, and then the youngsters you mentioned. I just don't think they. Yeah. It's almost like the signing of Jack Grealish and now a centre forward coming in. That is the Sterling replacement, if that makes sense. It's
well, just that's it as well. Yeah, Foden steps it up. Foden steps it up again. Grealish, this is him. This is game time for him. Like, it's time to deliver. You've had your time to bed in. Now go and do it. And you've got Haaland as the focal point, and then you've still got loads of backup options that can come into the rotation.
Yeah, no doubt about it. There's another super chat that says, "Bro, tell me why in America shirt buyers only have the choice of Matic, Pogba, Greenwood, and Rashford." You have to ask Man United that question. I don't know why their website's doing that. Me and Dean cannot help you with that one, my friend.
I would have logged on and checked that out if I stood out there.
That was actually hilarious. Guys, if you use our VPN provider, private internet access, and scan, you can change your VPN to say you're in America and go check it out now and see what it says. Might be quite funny. Remember, 3 months free and 82% discount. Use a QR code or link in the description to sign up now. But yes, I mean, I wanted to ask about Spurs actually briefly. There's talk now that Spurs are done. Like, there's going to be no more Spurs business now. And I've seen a lot of Spurs fans say 150 million spent, no marquee signing. Are you getting that feeling, or could there still be a player or two to cross over at White Hart Lane?
No marquee signing. I mean, when they signed Richarlison, I mean, that's a pretty significant signing. I mean, they've had an unbelievable window so far in terms of like what they've been doing. You know, Forster, Perisic is a great signing. Bissouma's a really good signing. Richarlison's a really interesting one. Obviously, Longley, I don't know if that's been announced yet, but Longley on the verge. Jed Spence on the verge. That's a lot of players to have been done by this stage of the season. And I'm told there are possibly 2 more to come. Only little ones, probably, but maybe one of those could be a luxury player that is actually quite exciting. Again, at the back end of the window. So, like, they've got the bulk of their business, or they're getting the bulk of their business done right now. They've got that done by mid-July. That's an absolutely fantastic situation to be in. I was saying at the start about how, you know, fan bases like Chelsea, Man United becoming frustrated. Tottenham fans can't really be complaining too much. Like, their squad is looking better than it did at the back end of last season. Still got Harry Kane, still got Son. It's happy days, surely. I mean, I guess there'd probably be with some, you know, why aren't we in for another centre-back? Why don't we go and get Pau Torres? I think Pau Torres is still on the market, so that's plausible. I think the fact that there's not an active pursuit probably tells you that they just preferred Longley. And if they preferred Longley to Pau Torres after all this time, then probably tells you something about where they see Pau Torres' capabilities in the Premier League. And as it's been said to me, like, a lot of clubs do see Pau Torres as a bit too weak to be considered at this moment as a first choice player in the Premier League for a club that considers itself a Champions League club.
He does look a little thin for the Prem anyway. Look, he does look a little thin.
Yeah, I mean, someone they say like he's another Lindelof basically. Like, he's a very good footballer. There's no doubt about it. But in the Premier League, there's a lot of work to be done.
Yeah, absolutely. But look, I think it's an intriguing one. I get this. It's every weekend actually for the past 3 to 4 weeks. There's been like something's broken over the course of the weekend. So I wouldn't be surprised to see that happen this time round. Again, viewers, I appreciate you all tuning in. Dean, a pleasure as always. Until next time, everybody, take care. Goodbye.